Welcome back to Friday at 5. You may have seen this book on KCBD. I think it was maybe a couple years ago, but now it has a new look. Same important message, though, and one we may not think about sharing with its intended audience.
Cindy Crane is the author of I'm on Hospice, a children's book for processing and coping with a terminal illness. Cindy, I know this was a passion project for you, and she gave this to me a few months ago, and I can't read it without crying. It's a hard topic, but it's an important one. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Yeah, so the intention obviously not to make people cry, but,
I know.
But it's a heavy subject that I couldn't really find any resources for, and I started writing this book back in 2022, inspired by a very special family that I had the privilege of taking care of, and again was looking for resources to help explain what hospice care was and to really understand what kiddo knew about his terminal illness. And so this book was inspired by this family and really just to be a resource for palliative care, hospice teams, and unfortunately families who may have a kiddo on hospice who's terminally ill.
And of course you worked in hospice care, so you kind of saw this firsthand, like you said, working with that family. So and this story is about 9-year-old Riley. Can you kind of explain kind of what he's going through?
Yeah, so all pseudonyms that are used in the book, but Riley talks about how he was diagnosed with a terminal illness that's undisclosed, because really the idea is to have families have broad conversations about terminal illnesses no matter what the illness is. And so he walks through the story talking about how he was diagnosed and then introduces us to his care team, his hospice care team, and their roles and how ultimately they take care of him and their goal to keep him comfortable and safe as he's dying.
So how can people get this book? There's several ways to.
Yeah, so I republished the book a couple weeks ago. It launched on Amazon last week, and hopefully next week it'll be on Barnes & Noble. But Amazon right now.
Kind of an interesting story about this, some of the background. The illustrator actually lives overseas, right?
Yes, yeah. So it was funny because when she was working on this, it would often be in the middle of the night when we were asleep over here, and so I'd wake up and she'd have beautiful illustrations done for me the next day.
Yeah, and they're fantastic. I mean, it really is such a special book, and I want to thank you for all the people who, these are tough conversations, and it helps make those conversations, I think, a little bit easier with this.
And even though this is about, children understanding hospice care, I'm sure, anyone can read this book and kind of get a message, would you think?
Absolutely. So it doesn't have to be a kiddo that's necessarily on hospice, but maybe an adult, like a grandparent who might be on hospice care or might have a terminal illness. This book is really family friendly. The content is heavy, so maybe friendly is not the right word, but it covers sensitive content in ways that children can understand it and essentially ask questions that may come up for them.
Well, starting with this book, do you have any other ideas for anything else that you might be, or is this probably it?
So I've got a second book in the works that kind of just has Riley walking through his hospice journey and his story and how his body is ultimately declining and what that looks like. Also part of a group of other authors I have to mention called the Phoenix Rising Authors Collective, who are also working to put their books back out there.
That's wonderful. And you have stayed in touch with this family, right?
I have.
Are they happy that this book is out there as a resource for other families?
Yeah, they're really grateful. And it's humbling for me because another reason why I wrote this book was to honor him and to honor their family. And so the fact that I get to stay in touch with them and keep them updated with how the book is doing, it's really humbling and means a lot.
That's great.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Again, Cindy Crane is the author. It's I'm on Hospice, a children's book for processing and coping with a terminal illness. You can get that on Amazon right now. Thanks so much, Cindy.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.